So thank you for sharing, and it's so interesting to see how you intend to optimize human potential and of course promote excellence within the institute. But let's go back to an item in the institute's charter, which has to do with the regulation and standardization of the practice of human resource management in Nigeria. It's core in the charter.
Yeah.
What are your top three strategies to ensuring that this aspect of the charter is upheld if you are elected as president?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. That again is very, very dear to my heart, as it is, of course, to the ultimate existence of the institute. In my opening remarks, I did say that the CIPM remains the only body chartered by law in this country today to regulate HR practice. Now, I think there's a need for us to be out there more. And one of the things that I think we need to do is that we need to, in addition to what we're doing now, begin to exercise our regulatory authority. And that is to say, in exercising regulatory authorities, we begin to look at our members, either individual members or even corporate members, look at what exactly are they doing as far as the HR practice is concerned. Where we find infractions, we must be that institute that should now be bringing people to book for infractions in the HR profession, either against employees, or even against the practice of the profession. And to that extent, as chair of the Professional Conduct and Ethics Committee, for example, I have led the committee, working with my colleagues in the committee, to review the code of conduct, the code of professional ethics and conduct of the institute in the same time. It's been approved by the governing council. The reason we did that now is for the institute to begin to intervene, a lot more, in what is happening to its members, and a lot more in what is happening, in the HR space in the country. Now, the revision of that code of professional conduct and ethics document is also going to lead the institute into establishing a tribunal, hopefully later this year, which will then try infractions around professional misconduct, either by members of the institute or even by individual members of the institute or by even corporate members of the institute.
Thank you for sharing. And very interesting. And I'm excited to hear that there is a plan to establish the tribunal that talks about standards, that talks about excellence, that talks about quality, that talks about credibility. All right. My last question before I hand over back to Aisha would be, what are your plans to position the institute as a thought leader within the larger HR ecosystem within Nigeria, Africa, and beyond?
Thank you. Like I said earlier on again, I know we are playing in Africa. I know we are already out there, in the world. But are we visible enough? Are we even visible enough in the country? I think we need to do a lot more. We have done quite a lot in the last 56 years of the Institute. But I think we need to do a lot more to bring inclusion to members of the Institute, even in Nigeria as a country. And it's the reason I spoke to our members, our professional colleagues who are either practicing in the public service, or our members, professional colleagues who are in states, say outside Lagos, outside the Southwest or the Southeast or the South-South. We already have branches in quite a number of states in the North. But our members of the Institute in these locations as active, as members of the Institute here, as we have, say, for example, in Lagos or in the states in the Southwest, the South-South or the Southeast. So can we, as an institute, take our offerings, to these professional colleagues in these locations to ensure inclusivity and to ensure, that they also participate more, take advantage of the opportunity, that the Institute is providing, at least to reskill themselves, to become better professionals than they are now. It's one of the things that I would really like to see that we do as an institute, and it's part of my core agenda if I do get elected as president of the institute.
All right, let me hand you back to Aisha for her final questions. Aisha, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Drilling down and tying in on the objectives. One of the fundamental objectives is on research and publication. So what role do you see research and publications playing in advancing the discipline of human resource management, people management, and how would you support these efforts within the institute?
Okay, thank you, Aisha. We already do have a research and publications committee in the institute. I think my role as president, if I do get elected president, will be to give the research and publication committee of the institute more visibility. The committee is currently at least populated by people who are core HR professionals, very cerebral people. And I'm aware, that they have worked on quite a number, in conducting research. They've worked on a number of initiatives, including the HR needs document. What we then need to do, is to begin to put these documents out there for people to see, so that they will understand that we are not only a regulatory institute, we're also an institute that is focused on research. And we're not just an institute that is focused on research, we're an institute that is willing and will be publishing our research, in the HR space, so that a lot of people, members and non-members alike, can read and can also take knowledge from the publications that will come from the institute, which of course will be born out of the research that would have been conducted, by the institute. Of course, this is being driven by the research and publication committee of the institute.
Thank you for that response. And that takes me to my final question. You've shared a lot about stakeholder management and, making that living, promoting excellence. But what we would like to know from you, since really being a people practicing institute that, is advocating about, people management, human resources, stakeholder management is so important that it cannot go, unrelated to what, the institute is doing. So how do you plan to bring on board or see that engagement, is sustained? What are those key things that you would do differently, to make sure that, you collaborate with stakeholders both within and outside of the CIPM to achieve the institute goals? So would like to just narrow in on those aspects of what you plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisha. In the past, we as CIPM and as an institute, I'm aware that we were drawing our precedents from, say, either MDs, of large corporations, MDs of very large businesses, HR directors of large corporations and large businesses, mostly from around the Southwest and from around Lagos in particular. To that extent, we will say that our engagements with the private sector, with large corporations, with FMCGs, have been very, very good. Top notch, I will say. But how has our engagement, for example, with the public sector been? I think we're still struggling. I think we're trying, but I also think that we are not there yet. I'm aware that the current president, Olusegun Majid, has made very strong efforts, you know, to get us to collaborate with various government agencies. We're already doing well, like we always say, in Lagos. It's there for everyone to see. With the federal government, we have not been so lucky. It's the reason why, for example, we tried as much as possible, and even before the current presidency, we've tried to reach out, say, to the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation, the National Council on Establishment, to give visibility to CIPM, to get them, you know, to also key into the agenda of CIPM as the only regulatory body for the practice of HR, you know, in Nigeria. We've done well with that now, at least with the recent circular. We've also tried at least to even engage the National Assembly to ensure that at least we begin to work with them. Why that is important is that as a body and as the body responsible for the regulation of HR practice in Nigeria, we should be able to influence, you know, certain bills, certain laws, certain acts of the National Assembly that have impact or that are likely to impact people management in the country. The only way we can do this is if we collaborate, say, with the National Assembly and we partner with them. So for me, the plan is to take this forward, to consolidate on what has been done. I know we've been talking to the Civil Service Commission, you know, of the Federation. We also should be doing this with the states. And now that we have this circular, like we said, from the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation, I think we should deepen more our engagement with the 36 states of the Federation, just as we will not drop the ball, you know, with our engagement with our other stakeholders, say, in the private sector. Now, and again, with stakeholder engagement, our biggest stakeholder are members of the Institute. I know that as an institute, we have close to 20,000 members. But how many of our members are actually active today? I'm sure less than 5,000. Can we drive this number up by going, and like I said, by taking our offerings, you know, to our members wherever they are, encouraging them to stay active in the Institute, encouraging them to participate in various activities of the Institute, and not just coming to the annual conference. Of course, there's nothing wrong with coming to the annual conference. No, that's not what I'm saying. But there are so many other activities of the Institute where we need our members to engage. And the leadership has responsibility for taking all of these offerings, all of this value proposition to our members in the nook and cranny of this country. We must support what our branches are doing in all the locations across where we have branches. And where we do not have branches across this country, part of my agenda, of course, will be to go and, you know, to ensure that at least we establish branches in all of these places.